Today's topic, here, I'll go ahead and share my screen here, is common hiring mistakes and how to avoid them. Okay. And love to kind of hear your input on your experiences as I'm going through these slides. If you've experienced this yourself, even hiring contractors. But all of our presentations more so tailored for full-time hires. So eventually you'll want to bring on full-time hires versus contractors, but it's still applicable to in some parts. It's still applicable to contractors that you're bringing on today. Okay. So quick intro about myself. I'm the founder of Design Source Media and DSM Talent. Um, uh, it's a web agency I've been running for all over 13 years now, since 2011. And then DSM Talent is our recruitment arm, a staffing agency, and we help other agencies find talent from the Philippines. I'm an agency owner, agency U member. We currently manage a team of 15 and a husband of father of three kids. So this is typically what it looks like when I talk to agency owners. Okay. Um, they're ignoring clear expectations and structured onboarding, and they just want to do quick hires, right? They like the chaos, apparently. Right. So, sound about right? Feel did I hit a chord there?
I've definitely been there.
Yeah. Um, so mistake number one, right? Not setting clear expectations. So it starts with lack of clarity around the role, the responsibilities, performance metrics, right? And what are the consequences? People are confused. They don't know what to do. Um, when when you thought as an owner, as the agency owner, to like, oh yeah, I expected you to deliver on this, but you didn't write it down. You didn't share that. What do you expect them to read your mind, right? So that's the problem. And then of course decreased productivity, but that's usually the after effects of all this, right? But that's the thing that kind of sticks out the most. Like, oh man, nothing's getting done. We're getting buried. I end up spending more time fixing their work than if I were to do it myself, right? Really common like mindset. Well, we got to take a step back and say, did I did I set up this individual for success in the beginning? Did I set those expectations very clearly? Right. So just using an example, right? Like for Kevin, since you brought it up, like some of the editors that that had bad grammar, right, or didn't provide like a very thorough like review. And as crazy as this sounds, okay, you have to say these things. Like, I expect when you provide me a video, don't just slap it together. Um, I want you to look through it at least once or twice, but also I want you to check the text, the grammar, okay? And to play devil's advocate, right? From their perspective, maybe you wanted speed over anything else. So they're like just slapping this together. It might even the text might be like lorem ipsum, right? Just filler text. So X is all about expectations. But now once expectations are set and then they do not meet those expectations, then it's an issue on the individual. So so action steps on clear setting expectations, clear, well-defined job descriptions, specific goals and performance indicators, communicate expectations in the interview process and onboarding, and then the role blueprint. So this is the job scorecard. So that's the first section. And then the next section would be the job description. Okay. So that's everyone is very familiar with that, right? Like, but what we add is who we are, what we're looking for, type of work, personality traits, responsibility, experience, very typical stuff. But this additional section is how we will help you succeed. So just letting the individual know when you apply here, this is what we do to help you, and employment type and stuff like that. So then the next section, we don't put this out in the job description, but it's another section of time expectations. Like how much time, in this case, it's an example of a customer success manager. What are the time expectations? How much time are they spending per activity, per task? So we put that in there, and then these are some of the interview questions that we may ask for this particular role. You see, so all these things are already built out, planned out, and it is thorough. It's not like we're winging it in the seat of our pants, like, oh yeah, we need to hire a CSM or a social media manager or a video editor, right? Let's just randomly come up with some questions when we jump on to an interview with them, right? We don't. It's not thorough. You have to follow a system if you want to find qualified candidates and also make it fair for all the applicants that are applying. The next mistake would be hiring for skills over cultural fit. Okay, so I would say they're equally as important. I would say cultural fit is a slightly more important because you want to think of it this way. It's much easier to train someone on like the tech or the certain skill set. You can send them to like a workshop to learn about those things compared to they're just not getting along with you or getting along with the team members. They're having like the different ideologies or different values in your compared to what your own values are and your values of your organization. That's much more difficult. And if you end up keeping this type of individual in your organization, it over time, your organization may turn into an organization that you don't even want to work in. Okay. I'll give you a quick example. It might be an individual that's really defensive, right? This personality type, and you can address it, but they're not willing to change. So then um, they're hiring other people, and they're inviting others that are just like them. So next thing you know, you have a whole company, an organization, a team of members of people that are just extremely defensive, right? And they're not open for ideas and open for suggestions, right? And so at that point, do you even want to work in your own company? Right. So you got to be very careful of the cultural fit and also of course, the skill match. Skill match is easy. Just looking at it, testing for that. Um, so yeah, as I mentioned, leaders whose authoritarian style alienated employees. As a result, many talented individuals have left the company. We've seen it ourselves with agencies that we've worked with. We placed talents for an agency. They were working great. They love the place they're working at, and as soon as the agency owner hired a director, um, they just came in kind of like with guns blazing, and almost immediately, like within a month or two, they started leaving. And we have exit interviews, so we ask them, hey, what's going on? And I also interview the agency too, and they're like, yeah, the individual was fine, performance-wise, it's great, but when we talk to the individual, they're like, yeah, I like working here, I would have stayed, but I just can't deal with this new person. Just they're not collaborative, they're not working. They think they know it all. So it doesn't work out. So you're going to end up losing your best hires or your best team members because of this. So assess candidates about cultural fit, utilize cultural fit interview questions, involve team members in the interview process to gauge cultural compatibility. So just some examples of questions would be, how do you ensure clear communication while working remotely? Right? How do you stay motivated and productive when working from home? Right? What steps do you take to clarify expectations for work? Right? What do you think are the key elements of a positive work culture? Right? So, and then how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance? Right? Like I still remember there was this one hire that we had for our own team, and he was like, just imagine like the drill sergeant type, where he wanted to run our department like a drill sergeant, and is a very traditional way of thinking. Some organizations I guess it's good for, but it's very rare now. And almost immediately, I got initial reaction from my team, like, "Whoa, where did you find this guy from?" And the team basically revolted Just like they would have gone on strike if something didn't happen. And but that's the type of culture that we have in our own organization, right? Our team members will speak up and will talk about and address those concerns. But that's the culture that I work really hard to build along with everyone else in the organization. Right. And some of these things may not be relevant today. Like, hey, Dave, I only have contractors. I don't have full-time hires yet. I don't have a big team yet. But right now is, I would say, one of the most important things because you're hiring your foundations, right? Your first few hires. And if you don't look at that culture fit, because every subsequent hire that you bring on, that culture is going to magnify based on the initial hires that you bring on. So if you're not careful, kind of dictating what kind of culture you want in your own organization now, and you bring on who you want to bring on, it's going to be very difficult when you have, let's say, 5, 10, 20 people. Okay. Um, Failing to invest in proper onboarding. I lost track how many agency owners have basically said, "Oh yeah, I talked to them for the first 2 days," and then after that, it's like, "Yeah, every so often I would talk to them, maybe once a week or once a month. It's sporadic, right? Just totally like unstructured. There's no plan for onboarding, no clarity, and then 2 months later, like, hey, they're not performing. They're not doing what I asked them to do. Did you have an onboarding? Yeah, 2 days. Like you expect. So let me ask you this, right? You're working for someone else and you only got 2 days. And of those 2 days, you only spent an hour with that person. And you expect to be extremely successful in that organization. And you may be because you're an owner, you're a business owner. You can work maybe at a director level, but you're hiring editors. You're hiring people with maybe 2 to 5 years of experience. You're not hiring directors. Okay. So the level of training should correlate with that. So if you hire a director level, yeah, your onboarding should still be intense and thorough, but it's the different type of onboarding, right? The director level, the director will be able to kind of right away start producing results really, really quickly, but not someone like more like a technician, like a video editor, a social media manager, a designer, a developer, right? Or your EA, right? They really need time. So solution would be implement a structured onboarding. Like for us, it would be a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding. So let me how do I, oh, here we go. So this is what it looks like for us. The first 30 days is to learn. The next 30 days is to implement what you've learned. And then after that, the 30 days after that, so 60 to 90 day is optimizing what you've learned. Okay. Agency owners make this mistake of week one, week two, I want you to optimize our systems or lack thereof systems. Like what? So give the individual ample enough time, but they can learn much quicker and start because I have yet to hear a single agency owner say, I don't want our team members to come up with good ideas. I don't want our team members to help improve our processes and systems. Said no one, right? Every single owner and entrepreneur wants their team to help improve, right? The process in their organization. But they want it right away, but they skip steps, literally skip steps on getting the individual to that point. Okay. So, so there's our 30, 60, 90 days for the onboarding piece. Rushing the hiring process, right? Hiring in a haste due to pressure or urgency, right? Typically, what I see a lot, and I'm glad it was Jonathan, right? You mentioned like, yeah, I'm already thinking about hiring someone. That's good, right? You want to think about it, you want to plan it. Don't wait until like, oh yeah, I'm running my momentum campaign, I'm running my authority campaign, we're killing it, and we're getting all these leads, and I sold like 3 contracts, and shit, how do I how do I deliver, right? I don't have enough time. And now you're rushing to find help, you're rushing, and what ends up happening is that it's this vicious cycle. So you're trying to deliver, you're stressed out, and now you may have to stop running your authority campaign or momentum campaign. You may have to stop your ads, and then maybe your new customers are complaining because you're not delivering in time, or the quality of work is going down, and you're stressed out, like, oh man, this is not me. I expect, much better delivery, much higher quality. But now you're hiring, and then the new hires like, I don't know what you want. You're stressing me out. I can't read your mind. Right? Sound familiar? So now it's just all of this stuff, just kind of like, now this is what I call imploding, right? You would literally implode, right? Within your own organization. You're growing too fast, and companies have gone out of business because they've grown too fast. So that's a problem too. For us, we forcefully like slow ourselves down. There are times where like, yeah, we can make a lot more money, but we try not to, because we want to grow in a steady, pace. So with the hiring process, the same way, you want to make sure that, okay, this is the individual with the job, the job scorecard, filling out the job scorecard. But even before that, like, why do we need this hire? Does it make sense? Should this hire be the first hire? For most agency owners, it should be an EA before a technical hire. And but if you want to hire a technical hire, okay, what are the things that you're going to be delegating to this individual? At what point? Right? The first week, second week, third week, right? At what point? And how is the onboarding process? And but also the overall hiring decisions. During the hiring process, don't hire the first person that you interview. Okay. Without going through proper assessments, maybe multiple interviews, maybe even talk. If you never hired before, then at least talk to a few candidates, right? If you're not working with like an agency like ourselves, which we have a lot of experience in, but if this is your first time, you're trying to do it yourself, talk to at least, I would say at least 4 to 5 candidates, so you can kind of get the gist of it. But at the same time, if you don't have a standardized interview setup, now your first person that you interviewed versus compared to the fifth person that you've interviewed, your questions are going to be different. Your interview process is different. So now how do you compare apples to apples, right? And how is it fair for the candidates? Right. So all these things. So you want to have don't want to rush into it. So solution, you implement a thorough screening process, conduct multiple rounds of interviews, and be patient. Prioritize quality over speed. Because what ends up happening is, if they're not a good hire, you've invested your money, your time, right? You're talking 2, 3 months, and now delays. And now if you're buried already, you're going to be deeper in, right? You're going to be further in, because now you got to hire someone else, retrain them. At the same time, your customers are complaining like, hey, where's that work? Where's that video that you're supposed to edit? Where's that social media post that you're supposed to be posting? Where's that website that you're supposed to be launching? Um, not providing growth opportunities, right? Like everyone else here, right? We want our organization to grow. We want to succeed. We don't want to stay stale for, would you be happy doing the same thing where you're at right now, not growing at all for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? So at the same time, the individuals that you bring on, like we bring on, we want to provide as much clarity as possible of like, okay, you're 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 here as a video editor. You're here as an EA. But what do you want to do, right? Where do you want to grow into? What do you want to grow into? Because as an agency, you have the advantage now, as a small agency, to grow, and there will be a lot of opportunities for this individual. So you as a smaller agency have the advantage over like the huge companies out there, right? If you're trying to compete with the Goliaths, right? Like let's say you're trying to compete with Facebook or Apple or Microsoft, right? And they need editors at their organization, or they need marketers at their organization. How do you compete, right? And how you can position yourself is you have a lot of opportunity growth here, right? Compared to these other organizations. So uh, So in order to offer that, right, career advancement, offer training, mentorship, talk to employees about their career growth. I talk to my team members all the time during our one-on-ones. Like, hey, are you happy with what you're doing here? What's the next step? What are your professional and personal goals, right? And I listen and I try to help the individual like a mentor. And when you do that, and also help convey the vision of the organization, and you create that alignment, that's how you create that win-win. Right? Make sense? So here's an example, career growth for a video editor, right? So they start off junior, assistant, video editor, they're 0 to 3 years. What's next? Then they become a video editor, 3 to 5 years of experience. Senior, 5 to 10, right? Lead editor, post-production supervisor, and then creative director or director of post-production, right? And these years are just like a rough ballpark, okay? Like they can be a director in like 3 years, okay? If they're that good and they really push themselves, right? It's up to the individual, but also it's up to you as the mentor to coach them and to invest in that individual to get to that point, right? It's easy for someone to say, I want to be a creative director someday. And it's easy for you to say, yeah, I would love to have you be a creative director someday. But what's the game plan? What's the path to that? So what can you do as the business owner to help that individual get there? And while they're getting there, they're helping the agency scale and grow. Okay. Another and also there's other alternatives for a video editor. They could be a motion graphics designer, a colorist, sound editor, a PR, producer, director, right? So there's also alternative paths. So it's important for you to know like these alternative paths and the standard paths and ask like, what do you want? Because as crazy as this sounds, most people don't know what they want. Okay. They just don't. They haven't spent time thinking about it. Right. Even for me, it took me a while to really think about what I want to do. Because if you don't think about it, even for yourselves, then then 5, 10, 20 years is going to fly by. And we're like, oh man, what happened? Well, I wasn't aiming for this. I didn't work towards this. And next thing you know, boom, 10 years goes by. Okay. Um, Another path for an EA, entry level, mid level, senior, and chief of staff. Okay, so that's the typical standard EA path if they want to stay in the EA lane. If For alternatives for an agency like for ourselves, my EAs don't stay as my EA for very long, maybe less, a year to a year and a half at most. Then they become project managers, ops managers, HR. They go into HR. They go into, you know, marketing. So there's a lot of roles that an EA can go into for an agency.
Good question.
Yes.
Or maybe two. So, with something like an EA, do you, and this might be in your onboarding stuff that you had, do EAs get access to like all your account information? Like, how do you safeguard yourself, like with that? Because they would be
Yeah.
dealing with emails and accounts and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my EA does have full access to my emails and my calendar, and she also has my credit card information. She does not have my banking, logins or anything like that. Um, so. so there's that, and then yeah, there's a level of confidentiality that is expected from an EA, right? He or she has full access. So we're we're talking about confidential information all the time. It might be the accounting numbers, the finances, what's happening internally. So there's that level of confidentiality is that is expected in this role, in this individual. So in the beginning, when you're first hiring the EA, right, you don't I wouldn't recommend just giving them like your credit card information immediately, right? So in the beginning, it's about okay, just manage my emails, look through it, review, just archive the emails and just tag them appropriately. And then over time, you can give the EA more access, more responsibility, right? Does that make sense? So ultimately, it's just still a trust thing. You have
Yeah.
to build trust with the individual, and they have to trust you, and they have to earn your trust too. Okay.
Gotcha. And then the second question I have is you say a lot of times your EAs are not your EAs for more than a year. Is that because
Yeah.
of a need that you have, or because it's like, oh, you've already expressed that this is not what you want to do forever, and there's an opportunity for you to be a project manager or HR or something like that?
Yeah, usually it's the opportunities that arise. Being an EA for me is it's more, I mean, I wouldn't say it's more entry level, but it's usually the path of like so for example, our pay is higher in other roles, okay, compared to an EA. Right? I'm not saying the EA won't make as much, if not more, than other roles, but it takes a little longer. But also our needs in our own agency. There are times when like I would rather not have an EA and have a project manager to take care of our customers first. So I prioritize over that over having an EA for myself. So that ends up what that's how it ends up happening. It's like, okay, well, we're kind of we need help on the project side, or we need help on the operation side, we need help on the HR side, and you're my EA. You already know how the organization works. You already know the team. You're already familiar with the customers. Would you like to be a project manager? Would you like to be in recruitment or HR? And only if they say yes, then we start the transition, right? And that's a win-win, right? Because they want it, not me. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. Because if they said no to me, okay, cool. I'd love to have you as my EA. I don't have to retrain another EA, right? Then I'll just go find another project manager. I'll find an HR person, right? A recruiter. So what we try to do in our own organization is to promote from within, right? We start with that first, but only when we can, when we don't have the talent, the skill set or the experience, then we hire from outside.
Gotcha.
Okay. So another big reason why EA should be everyone's first hire, it will help you as an agency owner, but also a lot of paths that EA can take to help you, help your organization grow. Um, So another mistake number six, poor communication and feedback. Right? Lack of ongoing communication and constructive feedback. A lot of misunderstandings, poor performance, lack of direction. I touched on this earlier. Um, it's it's that. Oh, see ya, Kevin. It's the lack of clear expectations. They cannot read your mind. And one of the things that I do right away when we bring on someone, and if I was their hiring manager, or if I was their, manager or the leader, I would schedule a daily call twice a day for the next at least 10 days. And then afterwards, and maybe once a day in the morning. And in the morning, I'm talking about, hey, this is our game plan. Let me know like what questions you have. And then at the end of the day, how did you do? Right? And then if and I don't let people off the hook. All right. So for example, if I ask someone to work on, let's say, oh, can you work on this social media post? And it's due 3 days from now. I wouldn't say, like, oh, how's everything going? It's like, oh, everything's doing well. Well, okay, show it to me. Can you share your screen? Just show me your progress, right? And then at that point, I can provide feedback like, oh, okay, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Here's how I would do it, right? So immediately, it's this feedback loop. I'm providing feedback immediately. So don't just wait and assume that they're going to be able to read your mind and do everything perfectly. So regular check-ins with new hires provide frequent and constructive feedback and foster open and honest communication. So yeah, don't ask how the project is going. Instead, walk me through the project thus far. So you want to change your language, right? How's this going? How's that going? Walk me through this. Yeah, and but also at the same time, yes, the second question takes more time, but think of it as an investment. You're investing your time for much higher ROI in the future. So another way is one-on-ones, and we have a one-on-one framework. Then another thing is the 1-3-1 rule, which I've talked about before. Whenever someone would ask me a question, like they're stuck on something, like, "Hey, Dave, um, a customer wanted this." Okay. And 1-3-1 rule. All right, so I'll run a scenario. Um, a customer wants to pay us instead of everything up front, they want to split into multiple payments. Okay. And so then instead of just asking me for an answer, I would ask them, please follow the 1-3-1 rule. It's like, okay, then how they would present that same thing would go like this. The customer's asking for instead of paying out everything up front, they want to split in multiple payments. And here's my suggestions, the solutions to this. Number A, let the customer know we can't do that. It's a part of our policy. B, yes, we can. We can split it up 50% up front and 50% later. Or C, we can even break it out into milestones. But my suggestion is to break it up into 50 up front and 50 once completion. And then I would respond, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go with that. Thank you, right? So it by following this 1-3-1 rule, I I get my team members to think through the problem, and also the individuals that are the closest to the problem are the ones that have the best answers. So you want to think of it that way. And you yourself, you want to be like more like Yoda. You're asking questions, but you're asking like very specific questions to kind of get the individual to think, but also you're getting more information, you're getting more context, okay, about the scenario. So 1-3-1 rule. So that's all for today for the hiring mistakes. But does anyone have any questions? Let me ask everyone here. What are some of the things that you ran to based on these mistakes? What resonated with you? Like, yeah, I've done this before, or I made this mistake before.
One thing I've done for sure is I have waited too long to hire, and then it was kind of chaotic. Like I'm on a site, I'm messaging maybe seven people, and maybe the third guy on the list that I really want based on his skill, but the other two got to me quicker. So then I'm dealing with them, and then I'm like, all right, cool,
Yeah.
you can do it. And then like
Uh,
a day later or something, the guy that I really want comes back to me, and it just makes everything messy as opposed to
yeah.
being able to look ahead and think, where do you want your company to go? How would you have to prepare for that?
Yep. 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 Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Taj?
Yeah, I feel like one mistake that, I currently have been making with my video editor is I always ask him, how's it going? And I don't really request, him to share the screen. And I think that makes a lot of sense that you said that. So I'm going to start implementing that.
Yeah. 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 I love it. Yeah, you definitely want to go deep into it and don't feel like I don't know, like for me, when I first started doing this, it felt like I'm like trying to micromanage people. I don't know if you feel that same way, but it's not. It's like think of yourself as a coach, as a mentor, right? Imagine like if you hired a personal trainer and the personal trainer asked you the same question, like, hey, how's your workouts been? And you say good, and the trainer just walks away. Would you would you keep hiring that trainer for you, personal trainer for you, that coach for you? No, absolutely not. Right? The personal trainer would be like, okay, well, let's get on this bench. Show me your bench. Right? Show me your technique, and then let me give you some feedback so you don't injure yourself. Right? So think like a personal trainer. And when you're coaching, when you're helping your team members. So, what else? Anything that stood out?
Hi, yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we're a husband and wife team. So, my husband has dealt with all the editing side, and I've always dealt with the script writing side, and we're kind of transitioning to the content marketing side as opposed to just content creation.
Mm.
So, when it comes to an executive assistant or a VA, um, everybody keeps saying that that's the first one we should hire. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, that's kind of the role at the moment that I'm doing. So
Oh,
if
okay.
we operate by the 30, 60, 90-day rule, so we see ourselves say in 6 months' time, I'm going to need to transition away from being a VA and more into project management, for example. Um, Really, we need to be looking ahead at least 6 months in advance in order to make sure that we are recruiting for the future, I guess, as opposed to going, well, we're okay right now. Um, Especially if it takes like, 90 days to get somebody onboarded properly, and that kind of thing. So my question is that, at what stage of running an agency, because we're still small at the moment. So we're still aiming for a consistent 10K a month.
Okay.
And so at what stage would you say you should actually take on that VA or
Mm.
executive assistant, you
Yeah.
know? Because obviously if we reach the 10K, which I think we will probably by February next year, I'm hoping, maybe March.
Hmm.
Um, at that point, is that when we start recruiting, or should we just start recruiting now and interviewing,
Yeah.
knowing that maybe in 3 months' time, that's where we need to be, you know?
Okay. I'll give you a simple answer and a long answer. Okay. I'll give you a rule of
Okay.
thumb. I would say if I were you, hire the EA as soon as budget permits. Okay.
Okay.
Hire the EA as soon as budget permits. And here's why. What you're doing right now, you being as the EA, you're one of the most expensive people in the organization, right? You and your husband.
Yeah.
Okay. I know, like, I don't know where you're from, yeah, but do you really want to get paid close to minimum wage? Right? No, you don't. You shouldn't
Yeah.
be. Okay. You're a strategist, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, right? So think of it this way, you're an executive. Imagine it's kind of crazy to thinking about this, right? If a VP or a CEO of a company is doing administrative work, a director of
Yeah.
operations is doing administrative work. That's insane, right? Thinking about that. So as soon as budget permits, I would hire. So that means you want to consider like um your own personal expenses and everything else. But as soon as you want to replace the work that you're doing to sales, right? Because that's the one thing that if you don't have enough of that, it's game over, right? So you got to focus as business owners, is marketing and sales, marketing and sales, marketing and sales, right? And I know most of us started as creatives and they're like, hey, we love what we do. We want to do more creative work, right? But congratulations, you decided to start an agency and not work for someone else. So you have to do marketing and sales. And if you're doing administrative work, that means you're not doing the marketing and sales. You're doing administrative work. Okay. So there's that piece. And now the timing it's a balance of like your risk tolerance, your budget and your risk tolerance and how fast you and your husband want to grow and go and move. Right? I've seen agencies that are like, okay, um, we don't want to plan out, we don't want to wait 6 months. We don't want to wait 3 months. We want to start today. We know we're going to grow. We're getting traction. We have the savings. We have a 6 month runway in savings. So even if it doesn't work out, because so from a budgetary standpoint, an EA in the Philippines costs 1,500 a month. Okay, so you just do quick math, right? 1,500 times six is 9 grand. Okay, so $9,000. You don't even have to have $9,000 in savings, as long as you have cash flow of 1,500 a month, right? That you can put towards the EA. At that point, immediate, like just go towards that so you can focus on because getting a sale for 1,500 is much easier than for me to do EA type work and try to save $1,500 a month, right? So that's kind of like the difference in like my mindset that I have. Um, so and then also it's not 3 months. So it's 3 months to point of optimization. It's usually 2 weeks to 3 weeks when they start helping you. So after the first week of intense planned out training, usually the second week, I can start assigning small tasks. Like for an EA, oh, can you organize my Google Drive? Can you organize our SOPs? Can you start organizing my emails, right? And ask me any questions that you have, right? So, oh, can you jump into all these meetings that I'm in and start taking the notes the best you can? And then, let me review that and start sending out the email responses from that or the after meeting notes from that call for me. That's usually week 2 or week 3. You can start like having your EA help you immediately. Does that make sense, Natalie?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that when I think about training I think it's also a matter of handing over control as well, you know? So I mean,
Mm,
on the one hand,
yes.
yes, I am absolutely fine with giving up the menial tasks that I don't
Yeah.
I don't want to do. But then I'm like, but then I'm gonna have to lose control of
Yep.
all these, little balls I'm juggling basically.
Yeah.
And that is like, it's not just about handing over passwords. It's like, can I trust this person to organize my emails or to, writing up notes is one thing, but handing over those other things like the financials and
Hmm.
yeah. I think it would take me 90 days to get to trust the person first in order to
Yeah. 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 And,
hand
and
those parts over. Yeah.
yeah. So like for
Especially if I
example,
hired somebody in the Philippines or in a
yeah.
country which isn't my own country. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, yeah, we live in Europe, so it's
Okay.
the the salaries are not quite as high where we live as it would be in the US anyway. So I think
Okay. Well, it depends
we
on
hire
where, right?
people
If you're
from
living in
Morocco.
London,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we're
quite
not in
high.
London. We're in southern Spain. But
Oh, okay.
my husband is Slovakian, so
Okay.
hiring an EA from the Czech Republic or from
Yeah.
Slovakia, that if they have perfect English as well, so we can communicate,
Yeah.
that would be fine. And we're more than likely get them for less than 1,500 a month anyway.
That's good. Good. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. If it works out. Yeah.
so if
So,
that works out. So yeah, but it's handing things over to a person in another country on maybe the
yeah.
other side of the world. I don't think I'm definitely not mentally ready for that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So you can always put restrictions, right? And yeah, if your
yeah,
emails, if there's financials coming through your emails, yeah, that's hard to control. But for other like responsibilities, and if you don't feel comfortable letting go of your email, then keep your emails and have the EA do other things until they get to the point. But remember this rule of thumb, right? 60% done by someone else is better than 100% done by you. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
You
definitely.
you cannot scale and grow if you keep doing what you're doing. Okay. And if you keep doing what you're
For sure.
doing, you'll turn your job into a hobby, or you essentially created a job for yourself. Right. So
Yeah,
so it's like yeah, so there will be a point where you just have to let it go and the mindset of you want to sit on the board someday. Instead of this, even the CEO position or president position, don't do that. Why would you want to be the CEO? If someone in my organization said to me, Dave, I want to be the CEO of this company, okay, you can have it, all yours, right? If as long as you're qualified and you think you can help do all the activities of a CEO, it's all yours, right? I'll just chill on the board, right? I'll come and check on the organization once a quarter, right? And I'll go start my nonprofit, right? Done. Life is good. But you see, but if so you got to think like that, right? Or another way to think of it is how do you sell your company? If you want to someday sell your organization, right? Even if you don't want to at all today, right? Who's gonna buy it, right? If it's just you, right, or your husband, right, running the show, right? They can't buy you, right? So yeah, these parts you gotta let go. And another thing too, I mean, think of publicly traded companies. All their accounting is public. So if you don't feel comfortable about your own accounting, then hire an accountant, hire a CPA, and clean up your books, and that way, it's like it's not a concern. Thank you for being here, and let me know if you do have any questions or any other topic ideas. Feel free to message me on Slack in our Agency U channel, or DM me essentially, and I'd love to get your input, and we'll most likely put together a session on that too. Everyone, have a wonderful weekend, and take care. See ya.